Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a world where the word pudding is less of a simple dessert category and more of a historical term.
Right. It could be almost anything boiled, steamed, or baked inside a cloth or a basin.
Exactly. Our mission today is to tear through this amazing collection of 50 most wanted pudding recipes. And this isn't just a list of ingredients.
No, not at all. It's a revelation of surprising culinary history, the sometimes bizarre ingredients they used, and just the sheer dedication required to make these foundational dishes.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating here is how the term pudding just acts as this completely open canvas for so many different culinary styles.
hmm
I mean, it often combines elements that our modern palates would just never expect. This collection gives us a really comprehensive, quick understanding of that sheer diversity.
It really moves far beyond the creamy, cup dessert definition we have today.
Absolutely. We're going to explore preparations that span from simple fruit bakes, often born of frugality, to these complex, multi-day, suet-heavy preparations that were all about luxury and wealth.
So we'll be decoding the specific ingredients and instructions for all 50 entries.
That's the plan, starting right at the beginning with 7 unique expressions of this simple apple.
7 puddings, 1 foundational fruit, apples. But the structural components these apples are mixed with, the grains and binders, it's drastically different in almost every case.
It is.
We start with the apple and honey pudding. This sounds like a straightforward rustic bake, but the technique described is, well, it's surprisingly
It
precise.
absolutely is. The simplicity of the ingredients kind of belies the mandatory layering technique. We're looking at 4 cups of cut apples, 2 cups of breadcrumbs.
And that's likely stale bread, right? Acting as a binder.
Almost certainly. Then you have a half a cup of warm water, 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and half a cup of honey. But the preparation, it emphasizes building the pudding in these alternating stages.
That structural element is key, isn't it?
It is the entire point.
Right.
You begin with a layer of apples, then you top it with crumbs.
Okay.
Crucially, the warm water and honey are combined and poured over that crumb layer.
Ah, so you're effectively pre-soaking it.
You are. You sprinkle it with cinnamon, dot with butter bits, and then you just repeat the process, alternating apples and that crumb honey layer, but you always end with a crumb topping.
And that method ensures that the limited liquid, that honeyed water, distributes evenly, I'd imagine.
Exactly. It prevents the top from drying out before the apples fully soften during the 45-minute bake. It results in a really moist, heavy bake, best served with cream to add back some necessary lightness.
So from that rustic necessity, we jump to something much more elegant and complex. The apple and lady finger pudding.
Mm-hmm.
This one has several distinct cooking stages involving baking, cooling, and then mixing.
This one is definitely a showpiece. First, the apples are cored, peeled, and stuffed with this rich filling of raisins, citron,
Which is candied citrus peel, right? A marker of expense.
a huge marker of expense. And almonds. They're lightly dusted with powdered sugar and baked with wine poured over them until they're tender. So stage 1 is a baked, flavored apple.
Okay, that's just the start.
Right. Once those apples cool, the process shifts entirely. You beat a cup of sugar and 4 separated egg yolks into the baked apples and their stuffing.
So you're enriching the cooked fruit.
You are? And separately, the structural elements come in. 8 rolled lady fingers, a lighter, drier cake material, are combined with the stiffened egg whites and lemon juice. The sort of meringue-like mixture is then poured over the apples.
So we have a firm baked fruit base, and it's topped and blended with a delicate, aerated, cakey meringue.
Exactly. It's a structured but light finish. And the fact that it's served cold suggests more delicate, molded presentation, almost like a trifle or a charlotte, relying on the stiffness of the egg whites and the baked apple to hold its shape.
A lot of these recipes rely on stale bread or sponge cake components. Following that trend, the apple custard puddings show us how to use grain and fruit as a really reliable foundation.
This is such a classic comforting profile. You take 1 quart of pared and quartered apples, cook them down slightly with water until they soften, and then you pull them off the heat
And then enrich them right away.
immediately
Yeah.
with half a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, grated lemon rind, and lemon juice, the acid balancing the fat and sugar.
And for thickening?
The thickening agents are substantial. 2 cups of grated breadcrumbs and 2 tablespoons of flour. Finally, 2 well-beaten eggs bind the whole thing together.
So the flour and breadcrumbs here are functioning as bulk extenders and like moisture sponges.
That's it. It creates a much denser, more cohesive result than just a typical custard, which is then baked for 45 minutes.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. moving from simple breadcrumbs to something much more challenging to work with. The apple pearl barley pudding.
Yes.
This just screams historical frugality mixed with an extreme time commitment.
This demands patience and commitment. The ingredient list is lean. A quarter ounce of butter, grated lemon rind, 2 ounces of sugar, a pound of finely chopped apples, and half a pound of pearl barley, which needs 3 pints of water.
And the prep starts the night before.
It has to. The barley must be soaked overnight. This is vital to begin softening the hull. Then it's boiled with the water for about 3 hours.
3 hours. Why the immense labor for the barley?
Well, this long boil wasn't just for texture. It was a necessary step to break down the complex starches in the tough outer hull of the barley. It's what made it tender and digestible in an era before, quick cooking or refined grains were widely available.
So it's about maximizing a cheap, dense staple food.
Precisely. Only once that barley is finely tender do you add the apples, rind, and sugar. It's then baked for another hour after topping with butter bits. You are, in essence, baking a softened, flavored grain mash.
Now, we have to talk about the apple pudding grated, because one ingredient stands out as absolutely shocking in an otherwise sweet recipe, and we need to functionally analyze it.
I know which one you mean.
3 tablespoons of chicken grease.
This is a remarkable inclusion. It's a true moment of historical culinary insight. The recipe starts innocuously enough. 6 large apples, 6 separated eggs, half a cup of sugar, half a pound of grated almond, salt, and cinnamon.
Right, all very standard.
But those 3 tablespoons of chicken grease replace what we would use today as a neutral shortening or butter.
So how does chicken grease functionally differ from, say, clarified butter or lard in a dessert context?
Well, lard and beef suet have higher melting points than butter, which is why they produce flakier crusts. Chicken grease, or schmaltz, also has a relatively high smoke point and this distinctive, savory, rich flavor that is incredibly stable.
So it's not just fat, it's flavor.
It's a flavor component. It would contribute a unique density and a subtle underlying savoriness that cuts the sweetness, acting as an excellent binding fat. And, in a time of frugality, you wouldn't waste high-quality butter on a large pudding if you had rendered fat available.
It really proves that these sweet and savory flavor boundaries were far more permeable in the past.
Absolutely. The technique involves grating the apples to a pulp and mixing this with the grease, almonds, spices, and egg yolks before folding in those stiff, frothy egg whites for lift.
That makes the texture and flavor profile far more complex than a simple apple crumble.
Mm-hmm.
The apple repertoire continues with the apple sponge pudding. This one, again, includes a nod to specific cultural ingredients and an astonishing manual labor requirement.
It uses matzoth flour. You need 8 pared apples, pounded almonds, cinnamon raisins, sugar, and white wine for the stuffing. The apples are hollowed out, stuffed with that spiced mixture, and stewed briefly to partially soften them.
But the real work is the batter.
Oh, the real work is the batter. 8 eggs, 2 cups of sugar, salt, and grated lemon peel are beaten together for an astonishing 30 minutes until thick, before 1 cup of finely sifted matzoth flour is folded in.
30 minutes of manual beating. Is that an exaggeration or was that genuinely necessary?
Given that matzoth flour is unleavened and historically quite dense, that 30 minutes of beating was likely absolutely necessary. You had to incorporate enough air into the eggs and sugar to provide any meaningful lift.
So you're compensating for the lack of traditional chemical leavening or yeast.
Exactly. It's a test of endurance designed to create a light, sponge-like batter that is then poured over the apples and baked. Served with a wine sauce, of course.
After all that complexity, the final apple entry offers a moment of relief. It relies on a completely different starch base.
Yeah, the apple tapioca pudding.
Right.
This relies entirely on the textural contrast of the softened fruit and the gelatinous starch. The ingredients are minimal. 3/4 of a cup of tapioca, a quart of water, 6 pared and cored apples, sugar, and nutmeg.
And the key step is the tapioca itself.
It is. You boil the tapioca in water until it fully clarifies, turning it into this thick, sticky mass. That hot boiled tapioca is then poured over the cored apples, which has simply been filled with sugar and grated with nutmeg.
And then you bake.
Bake it till the apples are soft and serve it with cream. It utilizes tapioca, an early example of a processed exotic starch, as a quick, effective binding and gelling agent.
Which contrast heavily with the long-boiled barley we saw just a minute ago.
A world of difference.
So moving beyond that intensive apple segment, we pivot into other fruits and classical preparation styles. We're starting with the apricot pudding.
Mm-hmm.
This recipe uses canned fruit. which suggests a slightly later era of culinary convenience.
That's a good catch. The foundation is cake and canned fruit, signaling a small move away from total scratch preparation. You start by simmering the can of apricots with some sugar for about half an hour, then beating them into a puree.
And that puree is combined with crumbled sponge cakes.
6 of them, yes. Then the structural liquid, half a pint of milk and 2 large eggs beaten together, is poured over the apricot cake mixture.
And this all goes into a wet mold and is baked with a cover.
Right, for 30 minutes. The cover is critical here. It ensures the sponge cakes absorb all that liquid and steam, giving a moist, steamed cake texture rather than a dry bake.
Our first detailed citrus recipe is the baked lemon pudding, which employs a classic technique often used in pies, the meringue finish.
This is a great structural study. The base requires a quart of milk, 2 cups of breadcrumbs, 4 separated eggs, half a stick of butter, a cup of white sugar, and then the lemon juice and grated lemon peel.
So the milk is heated and poured over the breadcrumbs and the butter.
Right, they melt together.
The breadcrumbs here are acting as a dense binder, correct? Why not just use flour?
Precisely. This pudding isn't meant to be cake-based. The breadcrumbs function as a bulk extender and a heavy binding agent. They soak up all that dairy and citrus, giving the final baked result a specific, slightly chewy density.
So it's much more substantial than a typical flour-thickened custard.
Much more. Once it's cooled, the yolks, sugar, and lemon are beaten in. After the base bakes for 45 to 60 minutes, the meringue is added. The egg whites are whipped stiffly with 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar, spread on top, and baked again until lightly browned.
Plum pudding often conjures images of holiday feasts, and the baked plum pudding here certainly sounds substantial. A long 2-hour cooking time.
This is an edifice of celebration. The foundation is a massive, stale, grated bread loaf, steeped in a quart of boiled milk for a full 60 minutes. It's covered tightly to ensure total saturation.
And the other ingredients are just as big.
Oh, they're copious. Half a pound each of currants and raisins, a quarter pound of citron, multiple spices, nutmeg, cinnamon, mace a cup of sugar, half a cup of butter, and 8 well-beaten eggs, plus a glass of wine.
That dredging step is important, isn't it? The one for the dried fruit.
It is essential. The instruction specifies that the dried fruits must be soaked, dried, and dredged with flour before being stirred in.
Why is that?
It prevents the heavy fruit from sinking to the bottom of the pudding when it bakes. It's baked for 2 hours, which is absolutely necessary to cook the dense interior and meld all those strong flavors from the spices and wine.
Okay, contrast that complex, heavy density with the startling, quick simplicity of the banana pudding.
This is the polar opposite. It's a lighter, assembly-style pudding requiring only sliced sponge cake, sliced bananas, egg whites, and a wine-flavored custard.
So it's pure layering.
A pure layering exercise in a glass container. The softened custard, mixed with some wine, is poured over the alternate layers of cake and fruit. And the final step is just topping the dish with a stiffened froth of beaten egg whites.
It was served cold.
Which tells you right away this was meant to be a showpiece, highlighting the fresh fruit and that airy topping.
We return to more elaborate cooked preparation with the batter jam pudding. The instructions call for a lot of dedicated stirring over heat.
Yeah, almost like making a pâté à choux or thickened sauce base. The batter creation is complicated and requires precise timing. Ingredients include a pint of milk, jam, 3 separated large eggs, 2 ounces of butter, 3 ounces of fine wheat meal, and 3 ounces of corn flour.
So you make a paste, and then you have to stir it continuously over heat for 8 minutes.
8 minutes of stirring is a commitment.
So what is that step achieving functionally?
That heat and stirring are essential for fully gelatinizing the starches in the wheat meal and corn flour. It creates a smooth, thick, stable paste, a binding base that won't separate.
And then the egg whites are added.
Whipped and folded in after it cools. The structure is then built thinly, layered with jam in a pie pan, and baked for a relatively short 30 minutes, relying on that dense cooked batter to hold everything together.
The Belgian pudding brings us back to boiled preparations centered on fruit and soaked bread, using a specific type of bread.
Right. Uses one French roll, which is a lighter, often airy bread compared to, say, a penny loaf. It's soaked in half a pint of milk for 60 minutes.
And then it's mixed with apples and a lot of dried fruit.
4 chopped apples, sugar, a quarter pound each of currants and sultanas, nutmeg, lemon zest, and 3 separated egg yolks. The stiffened egg whites are then folded in last for aeration.
And then the whole thing is boiled for 2 hours.
The boiling is the crucial step here. It cooks the bread and fruits through uniformly, resulting in a dense, almost steamed cake texture, served traditionally with a sweet sauce.
Let's move forward a bit. We need to cover the three remaining boiled and citrus classics from this section. The blancmange, lemon pudding, is distinct because it separates its preparation into two textural components.
That's right. The blancmange itself is a set molded dish that functions as the main body. It uses water, sugar, lemon, and corn flour. Water is boiled with the lemon rind for flavor infusion,
Okay.
then thickened with corn flour dissolved in ice water. The ice water is key to prevent lumps.
Ah, perfect.
It's boiled quickly again, finished with lemon juice and sugar, and then stiff, frothy egg whites are lightly folded in for aeration before being poured into a mold to set.
But it's not complete without the accompaniment?
Exactly. A separate traditional cooked custard made from sugar, milk, lemon essence, and egg yolks is created to be served alongside the set blancmange.
The boiled bread pudding is a very sturdy preparation. It relies heavily on molasses and a mix of traditional spices.
This is a heavy-duty, long-steamed pudding designed for sustenance. The ingredients are a quart of breadcrumbs, a cup of warm milk, a cup of molasses, which provides that deep, rich flavor and color, a cup of chopped raisins, cinnamon, allspice, butter, salt, soda, and a cup of sifted flour.
Baking soda being the primary leavening agent here.
It is. All these ingredients are combined and mixed well, then steamed or boiled for 3 hours. The long boil is essential for the baking soda to work fully within that dense, molasses-heavy batter and for the breadcrumbs to completely break down and integrate.
And finally, for this section, the boiled lemon pudding highlights an ingredient that is fundamental to historical puddings, but almost unheard of in modern desserts. Suet. The ingredients combine half a cup of chopped suet, a pint of breadcrumbs, a large lemon, a cup of sugar, a cup of flour, salt, 2 eggs, and milk. The dry ingredients and the suet are combined first. Let's pause here. If you're using breadcrumbs and flour for bulk, what exactly is the functional role of half a cup of chopped suet in a boiled dessert?
Suet, which is raw beef or mutton fat, often from around the kidneys, is crucial in boiled puddings because it has a high melting point and it renders very slowly.
Slower than butter.
Much slower.
Ah,
Unlike butter, which melts quickly and can separate, suet melts gradually over the 3 to 4 hours of boiling time. It creates these tiny microscopic pockets of fat throughout the pudding, which melt into the dough, sealing in moisture and preventing the pudding from becoming waterlogged.
so it gives it a specific texture.
It gives the finished product a unique, non-greasy, crumbly texture. After boiling for that long period in a greased mold, it's served hot with lemon sauce.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and where our definition of pudding just shifts completely.
A savory turn.
The savory turn. We've established that pudding traditionally meant anything boiled in a bag or basin. Now we encounter the proof. Savory, meat-based, highly fatty preparations that are historical documents in themselves. We start with the enormous and frankly intimidating black pudding.
This is perhaps the most famous savory example, often known regionally as black pudding or blood sausage. The sheer scale and volume of the ingredients confirm this was either for communal consumption or prepared for long-term preservation.
What are we talking about, ingredient-wise?
It requires 2 quarts of whole oatmeal, a pint of cream, quart of breadcrumbs, maslin meal, which is a blended flour, usually wheat and rye, 8 well-beaten eggs, milk, and a really complex spice blend.
Jamaica pepper, black pepper, nutmeg.
Right. Salt, sweet marjoram, thyme powder.
And the structural base is where the volume truly hits. 4 pounds of beef suet and 4 pounds of lard. 8 pounds of fat for one pudding.
That volume of fat is staggering, and it defines the preparation. The oatmeal is lightly boiled and salted. Then the cream, eggs, spices, meals, and crumbs are added. Milk is used to thin the mixture. And finally, that massive amount of lard and suet is incorporated.
What's the function of all that fat?
It serves multiple purposes. It acts as a primary binding agent once cooked, and crucially, it acts as a preservative, allowing the product to last much longer than fresh meat. Once poured into the mold, it has to be pricked lightly with a pin before covering to allow steam to escape during the long boiling process.
That is a structural edifice designed to sustain. Moving on, the cabbage pudding uses unusual structural components and a surprising fruit element.
This is a very old-style savory dish, almost like a historical stuffed cabbage roll on steroids. The core ingredients are 2 pounds of lean veal leg and 2 pounds of beef suet, along with half a small scalded cabbage.
And spices, of course.
Nutmeg, mace, pepper, salt, and the unexpected element, green grapes.
Green grapes. In a meat and suet pudding, what function do they serve?
They provide necessary acidity. The veal and the 2 pounds of beef suet are chopped and ground together, a very rich, fatty, neutral base. The grapes, which would have been highly tart, are added to cut through that intense richness and provide a necessary counterbalance to the heavy fat and the earthiness of the cabbage.
And then it's wrapped in cabbage leaves.
The mixture is placed into individual scalded cabbage leaves, wrapped, tied with cloth, and boiled for 60 minutes. The cabbage leaf acts as a natural, edible casing.
And perhaps the most shocking to modern sensibilities, the calf's foot pudding. What's fascinating here is how the entire preparation focuses on extracting and utilizing gelatin.
This is highly labor-intensive, focusing directly on collagen. You start with 2 cleaned and boiled calf's feet. They have to be boiled until fairly done. Then the meat must be shredded once cold with all the bones removed.
And that shredded meat is essentially pure collagen.
Pure collagen, which will set like gelatin when cooled, providing a rock-solid, stable structure. This meat base is then combined with penny loaf crumbs, 3/4 of a pound of finely shredded beef suet, nutmeg, 1/2 pound each of washed currants and shredded raisins, 1/2 pound of sugar, 6 eggs, and salt.
So this is a meat-fat-fruit-sugar hybrid. It's a true transitional dish.
It is the ultimate transitional dish. It uses an animal protein source purely for structure and texture, then blends it seamlessly with classic dessert elements. Cream is added to wet all the ingredients, and it's boiled for 2 hours in a greased cloth. It's dense, stable, and highly nutritious.
The chicken pudding also relies on a complex mix of meats and flavors, moving away from boiling toward preparation in a paste-lined basin.
This one is intensely savory and very structured, leaning heavily on high flavor. The ingredients include beef suet, chicken meat, thinly sliced smoked veal, prepared beef-flavored gravy, mushroom powder, salt, pepper, mace, and nutmeg.
That mushroom powder would add a deep umami note.
A huge umami note. The chicken is cut small and lightly fried, then placed in a stew pan with the smoked veal, covered with beef-based gravy, and seasoned heavily with all those spices.
And what about the structural assembly? How is it put together?
The mixture simmers for 15 minutes to fully infuse the flavors. Then the final structure requires a pudding basin to be lined with beef suet paste, a fatty dough, before the simmered meat mixture is poured in and sealed. That suet paste liner serves as a crust, a fat barrier, and the container itself.
We wrap up the savory section with 2 versions of corn pudding, both of which appear to function as savory sides, much like a historical Yorkshire pudding or potato dumplings.
Exactly.
Let's look at corn pudding version 1.
Version 1 uses 2 green corn ears, 2 cups of milk, 1/2 cup of butter, 3 separated eggs, salt, and white pepper. The corn is scraped from the ears, and every row is carefully cut through at the middle part.
That's a very specific instruction.
It's critical. It ensures the corn releases all of its liquid and starch into the mixture. The yolks, milk, butter, corn, salt, and pepper are combined. Then the egg whites are beaten separately and stirred in before it's baked for an hour and a half.
And the salt and white pepper confirm its savory role.
Definitely.
Corn pudding version 2 uses canned corn and structural flour, but still keeps those savory elements.
This version relies on readily available products. A can of sweet-style corn, 4 large eggs, a pint of milk, 8 ounces of wheatmeal, an ounce of butter, salt, pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg.
The wheatmeal here acts as the structural flour base, so this would be much heavier.
Much heavier than the first version. All the ingredients are combined and blended thoroughly, poured onto a pie plate, and baked for about 60 minutes. The nutmeg adds a gentle aromatic note, but the salt and pepper still confirm it's intended as a heavier, savory side dish.
Okay, before we jump back to cake, we have to recognize that the calf's foot pudding, the cabbage pudding, just redefine what we think a pudding even is.
They're historical documents.
They really are. They prove the term relates to the cooking vessel and the binding agents, not the flavor profile. Now, let's return to the foundational elements of bread and cake, which were the backbone of so many economical puddings. We have 2 versions of the classic bread and butter pudding.
Version 1 is a precise method. It requires thin bread slices spread generously with butter, along with sugar, cinnamon, chopped apple, 2 beaten eggs, a tablespoon of sifted flour, 3 cups of milk, and salt. These are layered beautifully into a deep pudding dish.
And the apple and cinnamon are critical for flavor infusion.
Right, and the custard, made from the eggs, flour, milk, and salt, is poured over the bread.
But why the mandatory soak time? It has to stand for 60 minutes.
That hour is necessary to ensure the bread fully absorbs the custard liquid before it ever sees the heat of the oven. If you bake it immediately, the bread will float and dry out. By waiting, you ensure a uniform, moist texture after the slow bake.
And version 2 is much more streamlined, more flexible.
It simplifies the ingredients to stale bread, fruit of choice, sugar, breadcrumbs, prepared custard pie, and a pint of milk. It's a pure layering exercise, allowing the cook to use whatever fruit is seasonally available.
So less precise.
Much less precise, and it likely results in a slightly lighter final texture.
Next up, the bread and jam pudding, which opts for boiling instead of baking after soaking.
This uses Allinson bread, a specific, likely denser whole-grain loaf and raspberry jam. The dish is filled with jam-thickly spread bread slices. The liquid component is a pint of milk combined with a tablespoon of corn flour.
And that's heated to boiling and poured over.
Right, and it must stand for about 60 minutes to soak, just like the bread and butter pudding. But instead of baking, it's boiled, covered with the pudding cloth, for 60 more minutes.
So what does the boiling do?
The boiling method ensures that the starchy corn flour and milk create a stable, non-runny custard that completely integrates into the bread and jam without drying out the surface.
The Buckingham pudding is an elegant molded dessert relying heavily on delicate cake and ratafias.
Ingredients include vanilla flavoring, sugar, milk, 3 large eggs, 4 sliced sponge cakes, and a quarter pound of ratafias, plus 2 more eggs for the custard.
What exactly are ratafias and what is their role here?
Ratafias are small almond biscuits, often flavored with apricot or cherry kernels. They serve 2 functions. They add a rich almond flavor, and structurally, they are pressed into the greased mold first, creating this decorative, patterned exterior and a distinct textural contrast against the soft sponge cake.
And then it's steamed.
Steamed for 60 minutes, ensuring a delicate, moist finish, and it's served traditionally with jam.
A quick one before our quartet, the bun pudding.
This is a direct variation on bread pudding, simply utilizing 3 stale bread buns. They're thinly sliced, arranged, and soaked for a lengthy 2 hours in a mixture of eggs, milk, and sugar.
2 hours is a long soak time.
It is. It demands complete saturation of those denser buns. Then it's baked for 60 minutes and served with lemon sauce.
And let's not forget the simple, resourceful Canadian pudding.
This is a great example of maximizing every resource. It proves the ingenuity of the home cook. It requires stiff-style porridge, warm milk, 1 beaten egg, and jam.
So you're using leftover porridge?
Cold leftover porridge. It's combined with just enough milk to create a thick batter, mixed with the egg and jam, stirred well, and then baked for 60 minutes. It's a practical, filling use of leftovers, relying on the leftover starches in the porridge to bind the whole thing together.
Okay, now we arrive at the amazing Carrot Pudding Quartet 4, completely distinct recipes, proving that even when the main ingredient is defined, the preparation, flavor, and technique are utterly fluid.
It's fantastic.
Let's start with Carrot Pudding version 1.
This version uses 3 red carrots, penny loaf crumbs, 6 eggs, half a pound of clarified butter, 2 teaspoons of rose water, shredded lemon zest, nutmeg, white wine, and sugar. The initial prep is incredibly specific. The carrots must be boiled, peeled, and the red portion removed before being beaten finely with a mortar.
Wait, removing the red portion, that feels highly deliberate.
It is. This suggests a preference for the sweeter yellow core of older carrot varieties. The redder outer portion often contained more fibrous material and was slightly less sweet.
So they were optimizing the flavor profile.
They were. And the use of rose water adds an expensive, high-end aromatic element. It's baked with puff paste around the dish, almost like a pie.
Version 2 is the most unique due to its dense, starchy base and significant alcohol content.
Carrot pudding version 2 stands out for its unique structural blend. 1 cup of grated carrots, 1 cup of grated potatoes, 2 cups of breadcrumbs, copious fruit, spices, baking soda, syrup, and a decisive 4 tablespoons of whiskey.
Grated potatoes and 4 tablespoons of whiskey. That feels functionally distinct. Was the potato added for texture stability or just frugality?
It's a bit of all 3. The potato serves as an additional starch filler, replacing some of the flour or more expensive nut meal. And the whiskey, along with the cloves and allspice, serves as both a high-flavor ingredient and a preservative, given this pudding is steamed for a substantial 4 hours.
And it's served with hard sauce.
A heavy sauce made by creaming butter, sugar, and often more spirits. This is designed to be very dense and long-lasting.
Version 3 seems to be more of a sophisticated, lightened bake, leaning heavily on nuts.
Carrot pudding version 3 is highly dependent on 8 separated eggs and half a cup of grated almonds for structure. You combine 1½ cups of powdered sugar with the yolks, grated carrots, almonds, lemon rind, and a tablespoon of wine. The egg whites are slowly beaten in.
So this results in a much lighter texture.
Much more delicate than the boiled or suet-based versions. It's closer to a modern cake or sponge, Bake slowly for 60 minutes.
Finally, carrot pudding version 4 mixes macaroons and suet, another interesting combination of fat and cake.
This one is rich and textural. It calls for half a pound of boiled carrots, grated bread, a pint of cream, half a pound of suet, cinnamon, half a pound of sugar, 6 eggs, half a pound of macaroons, and a glass of sack, a strong fortified white wine.
And the carrots are beaten in a mortar.
They are, and combined with all the other ingredients. The specific structural instruction here is to mound the created paste around the edges of the dish, suggesting that the pudding is meant to hold a specific, dense ring shape during baking.
Now we move into more specialized, often luxurious flavors, nuts, chocolate, and even a completely unexpected vegetable base. Let's start with the highly unusual and complex cauliflower pudding.
This uses cauliflower purely as the vehicle for a rich, highly aromatic custard. Ingredients include cauliflower, milk, 3 cups of cream, 8 egg yolks, 2 egg whites, orange flower water, sack, sugar, mace, cinnamon, and nutmeg.
This reads like a recipe designed purely to show off culinary skill and access to expensive ingredients.
It absolutely is. The cauliflower is boiled with milk, then the tops are removed and laid on the dish. The complexity is in the custard. The 8 yolks, 2 whites, and the 3 cups of cream are combined with those highly aromatic and expensive flavorings.
Mace, orange flower water, sack.
Right. This rich mixture is poured over the simple cauliflower, baked until set, and sprinkled with sugar. The cauliflower is functionally a spongy base that just holds this incredibly decadent custard.
Following that, we have 2 different versions of cherry pudding. Cherry pudding version 1 uses rye bread and red wine.
Version 1 combines half a pound of stale rye bread, a dense, dark grain wetted with a wine glass full of red wine. This provides a strong, earthy, slightly acidic base.
And it's mixed with almonds, spices, cherries.
Pounded almonds, spices, sugar, 4 yolks, and half a pound of stoned sweet and sour cherries with their juice. The 4 egg whites are lightly beaten in for structure. It is served cold.
Cherry pudding version 2 uses crackers as its base, which is a quick alternative to stale bread.
It is. This relies on a scalded base. It calls for a pint of crackers, a pound of milk, butter, salt, 4 eggs, a cup of half and half, cinnamon, and the quart of stoned cherries.
So the milk is boiled and the crackers are scalded in it.
Exactly. It ensures they break down rapidly and absorb the fat and dairy. The remaining ingredients are added, stirred, and quickly baked. This avoids that long soaking time you need for stale bread.
Chestnuts give us another dual version study. Chestnut pudding version 1 is a layered preparation.
For version 1, a pound of chestnuts are boiled, shelled, skinned, and combined with milk, heated until tender, before being rubbed through a colander to form a smooth pulp.
And that pulp is layered.
It's layered alternately with an apple-flavored sauce mixed with currant jelly in a buttered mold. Lemon juice is squeezed over the top. It's a stable, dense, alternating dessert served with whipped cream.
Chestnut pudding version 2 is significantly richer. The sheer volume of eggs indicates massive indulgence.
The ingredients are staggering. 1½ dozen chestnuts, sack, orange flower water, 2 quarts of cream, 18 egg yolks, 4 egg whites, sugar, and butter.
18 egg yolks and 2 quarts of cream. That is unparalleled richness in this entire collection.
It is.
What does that concentration of fat and protein achieve?
It guarantees a deeply decadent, smooth, and incredibly stable custard. It would set beautifully, almost like a very rich baked cheesecake, without being too heavy, because the chestnuts themselves add bulk without too much added fat. The butter bits are stuck into the top before it's baked until set, likely to create a golden, rich crust.
Moving to chocolate, we look at 3 distinct preparations showing the early integration of cocoa into Western baking, starting with the chocolate almond pudding.
This is a sophisticated bake focused on ground nuts and cocoa. Ingredients: vanilla essence, 8 large eggs, an ounce of cocoa, 7 ounces of castor sugar, and half a pound of sweet ground almonds.
And the preparation is precise.
Very precise. Yolks are whipped well, then cocoa, almond, sugar, and vanilla are added sequentially, requiring vigorous beating after every addition. The stiff egg whites are then lightly mixed in. The almonds act as the primary structural component here.
Next, the chocolate pudding, steamed, which uses fine wheatmeal as a thickener.
This one requires making a stable, cooked paste first. The chocolate is dissolved in most of the milk. The remaining milk and wheatmeal are combined until smooth, then added to the melted chocolate. The mixture is heated and stirred until nothing sticks to the sides of the pan.
So you're cooking out the starch.
You're creating a thick, stable chocolate roux. Once it's cooled slightly, the beaten egg yolks and whipped egg whites are gently folded in. It's then steamed for a substantial 90 minutes.
The cocoa pudding is essentially a version of bread pudding utilizing the cheaper powder form of chocolate flavor.
Right. This uses butter, milk, and half a pound of stale bread as its base. The functional difference here is the preparation of the bread. The milk and bread are boiled until they're matched and soft.
So the bread fully disintegrates?
It creates a uniform batter. Cocoa, dissolved with warm water, vanilla, and sugar are added. Once it's cooled, the yolks and frothy stiff egg whites are gently stirred in. It's then baked for 60 minutes.
We see a shift to tropical flavors and ingredients with the coconut pudding.
This is a dairy-rich bake that highlights the use of the entire coconut. 1 grated coconut, 6 eggs, lemon peel and juice, sugar, and crucially, coconut milk.
Ah, so it's dairy-free in a way.
Well, the coconut milk adds a unique richness and sweetness that complements the tropical coconut and tart lemon. It bakes quickly, about 30 minutes, and is served cold.
The college puddings stand out because the final preparation method is frying, not baking or boiling. They are essentially fried dough balls.
They are small, dense fritters designed for quick cooking. Ingredients include grated penny loaf, shredded suet, nutmeg, salt, sack, currants, eggs, and sugar, plus a massive pound of butter reserved for frying.
So they're kneaded and formed into shapes.
Oblong shapes. The suet acts as a dense binder in the dough, and when fried in the melted butter, it creates a crispy exterior. They're served warm, sprinkled with sugar, a great example of a historically fast food type pudding.
Now for the more straightforward custards, the cornstarch pudding focuses heavily on the finishing sauce.
The pudding base is a study in starch stabilization. It requires milk, cornstarch, salt, and some reserve milk. A cornstarch slurry is made and added to boiling milk in a double broiler.
So it doesn't scorch.
Exactly. It's beaten and cooked for about 12 minutes. But the sauce is the complex part. A combination of stiff egg whites, powdered sugar, and half a bottle of currant jelly.
Adding bright color and tart flavor.
To a very neutral base.
And finally, for this section, the incredibly rich cream custard pudding.
This is a cooked custard that starts with a classic roux-like base. 2 cups of butter and 2 cups of flour. The butter is melted, and the flour is gradually added and stirred to cream the mixture.
A stable, fatty base.
It is. Separately, 4 egg yolks, sugar, and sweetened milk are beaten together. The 2 mixtures are combined and cooked in a double boiler until thickened. The use of a butterflour roux as the primary thickener yields a much richer, smoother, and heavier final custard.
We've reached the final stretch, covering distinct regional specialties and the rich, complex, holiday-style puddings that define the end of this collection, starting with the decadent, tropical Cuban pudding.
The Cuban pudding combines rich dairy, cake, and tropical fruits, and uses the extended boiling method. The ingredients include a pound of sponge cakes, a pound of grated coconut, 2 pints of heavy cream, a pound of loaf sugar, 8 eggs, and 4 ounces of ginger preserves.
That soaking step is critical for a boiled cake, isn't it?
Absolutely. The cream and sugar are heated until boiling and poured over the cake and coconut mixture, which is then covered to soak. This step is necessary to fully saturate the sponge cakes, preventing them from floating or disintegrating during boiling.
And then it's boiled for 90 minutes.
It is, after being poured over the ginger preserves in a buttered mold. It's served with the warmed, highly flavorful liquid from those preserves.
Next, the Cumberland pudding, a dense, baked fruit and fat combination with brandy.
This uses breadcrumbs, finely chopped apples, currants, shredded suet, brown sugar, 3 eggs, brandy, nutmeg, and lemon zest. It's simpler than the massive English plum pudding, but still relies on the structural integrity of shredded suet and that intense flavor profile.
And the brandy is a key flavor and preservative here.
Absolutely. It's all combined, stirred well, poured into a rounded mold, and baked for 1 to 2 hours.
The curd pudding requires active curdling of a large quantity of milk using earning, which we should probably define.
This is a foundational dairy recipe. It's essentially a historical cheesecake made from scratch. It calls for 3 quarts of milk, earning, which is rennet, half a pound of butter, 6 eggs, and spices. Rennet is a complex of enzymes used to coagulate milk, separating the solids, the curds, from the whey.
What happens after the milk is curdled?
The labor-intensive step begins. The curds are broken down by hand, drained of whey, and then ground with a mortar and pestle.
This grinding step is vital because it creates a uniform, smooth, cream cheese-like texture.
And if you skip it, it would just be lumpy. Lumpy and unpleasant. This ground curd is mixed with the butter, eggs, spices, sugar, and salt. It's baked in small greased pans for only 15 minutes, turned out, and topped with almonds and sugar.
We have the custard and fruit pudding, which uses stewed plums and acts as a straightforward yet rich family dessert.
This combines 2 cups of stewed and stoned plums, fine breadcrumbs, butter, cinnamon, and sugar. A mixture of a pint of milk and 3 eggs beaten together is added. It's poured into a greased pie plate and baked until lightly browned. The stewed plums are key, providing intense moisture and color.
Now, this raises an important question addressed right in the recipe name. What about those who don't have or can't use eggs? The next recipe, custard pudding without eggs, provides an answer through clever substitution and early food science.
This recipe ingeniously uses starches and commercial thickeners to mimic the binding properties of eggs. It calls for a teaspoon of flour, 1 pack of powdered custard, an ounce of butter, sugar, and a pint of milk. The powdered custard, an early commercial product, likely cornstarch-based and colored yellow in flour, are mixed smoothly with a little milk.
This demonstrates adaptation using ingredients common in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Exactly. The remaining milk is boiled with the butter and sugar. The boiling mixture is poured into the dry mixture, briskly stirred to instantly gelatinize the starches, transferred to a greased pie pan, and baked until lightly browned,
So it perfectly replicates the texture and color of an egg custard.
without needing the eggs.
Mm.
A testament to culinary innovation aimed at frugality and consistency. It's finished with apricot jam for flavor and shine.
And finally, the pinnacle of the collection, the highly complex, time-consuming English plum pudding.
The grand finale.
This is the culmination of all the techniques we've discussed. It symbolizes wealth, tradition, and maximum calorie density.
This is the historical standard for celebratory excess and preservation. The sheer scale is immense. A pound of stale bread soaked in milk, half a pound of sugar, 8 egg yolks, a pound of floured raisins, a pound of floured currants, a quarter pound of citron, a pound of salted beef suet finely chopped, a glass of wine, a glass of brandy, multiple spices, and finished with 8 egg whites.
A pound of salted beef suet, plus a pound each of raisins and currants. What is the role of salted suet specifically, beyond just structure?
The salt in the suet serves 2 primary functions: a subtle counterpoint to the intense sweetness of the fruit, and a further preservative element. Given the massive amount of fruit, fat, and alcohol, this pudding was not meant to be consumed in one sitting.
It was designed to last.
Designed to be reheated, kept for months, and often served over the entire holiday season. The suet and alcohol lock in the moisture and flavor over the extensive cooking time.
Speaking of cooking time, the preparation demands serious commitment.
It does. The massive list of ingredients is combined, thoroughly beaten, and the 8 stiff egg whites are folded and last for aeration. The mixture is poured onto a scalded cloth, dredged with flour and tied firmly, allowing space for the pudding to expand. And the final cooking time is immense.
How long?
It must be boiled for about 6 hours. That immense boiling time is necessary for the suet to fully render and integrate, and for the bread and flour base to completely bind the entire poundage of fruit and fat into one dense, stable mass. It is served with brandy sauce or wine.
So what does this all mean? We started by recognizing that the word pudding is a concept, not a simple dish. We've seen that concept embrace everything from the simplest layered banana dessert to savory spiced veal and calf's foot preparations.
To an 8-hour boiled, brandy-soaked masterpiece combining pounds of beef fat.
The sheer diversity from using matzah flour and pearl barley out of necessity to extravagant measures like 18 egg yolks and orange flower water is just astonishing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these 50 recipes reveal fascinating historical clues about culinary behavior. We see the clear dichotomy between culinary frugality, the stale bread, the cold porridge, the cheap grains, contrasting sharply with celebratory excess.
The spices, the wine, the brandy, the multiple pounds of suet.
Exactly. In dishes like the black pudding and the English plum pudding, they illustrate how food was preserved, extended, and celebrated. And this raises an important question.
We've looked at all these forgotten techniques and materials, the calf's foot collagen, the
Yeah.
chicken grease, the reliance on high-quality suet for slow-release moisture. Given that these recipes perfectly balance high energy density with incredible flavor and extended shelf life, what lessons can modern food scientists take from this collection about maximizing nutritional value, texture, and flavor complexity in today's ready-made, shelf-stable meals?
Considering the extreme versatility of these binders and extenders, which historical ingredient, be it pearl barley boiled for 3 hours or clarified animal fat, might make a surprising functional comeback in modern cooking, and what structural role would you assign it in a totally new savory dish? Think about the possibilities beyond this simple dessert cup.